In the stormy vastness of the skies of World War II, where steel cut to the clouds and the fate of entire civilizations was decided in trails of fire and smoke, two names rose like thunder over the skies of the battlefield: the North American P-51 Mustang and the Supermarine Spitfire. They were not just aircraft, they were extensions of the will of nations at war, manifestations of engineering, power, and hope. They represented, at the same time, the limits of human creativity and the coldness of life-or-death decisions made in each maneuver, forged in different contexts, but launched on the same bloody stage of Europe. Mustang and Spitfire did not only compete for tactical victories, they fought for a place in the pantheon of air supremacy. And each, in its own way, left an indelible mark on the history of military aviation. But as the engines die, the wreckage falls, and the echoes of war finally die down, one question remains: which of these titans of skies truly reigned over Europe? In this ultimate showdown, we go beyond nostalgia and passion. We'll delve into the engineering behind the scenes, compare performance data, analyze strategic impacts, and trace the true legacy of each machine. This is no simple comparison. It's an in-depth look at raw aeronautical excellence. Brace yourself. What follows is a battle that transcends time and redefines what it means to truly dominate the skies in wartime. Let's begin with the genesis, with the intellectual and industrial core that gave life to these machines. The Supermarine Spitfire, an immortal creation of the brilliant but tragically short-lived Reginald Mitchell and later refined by Joseph Smith, was Britain's urgent and elegant response to the growing shadow of the German Luftwaffe. Its elliptical wings, an instantly recognizable trademark, were not a mere aesthetic whim. They were, in fact, a sophisticated aerodynamic solution that minimized induced drag, the drag that arises from the lift itself, allowing tighter turns and a lower stall speed. This complex shape, although more difficult to manufacture, gave the Spitfire exceptional maneuverability. Combined with an aluminum monocoque fuselage, which offered an excellent weight-to-strength ratio, and initially powered by the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, the Spitfire was born as a pure interceptor, a natural duelist, designed to defend British airspace with feline agility and immediate response. Its design evolved constantly, but the core philosophy remained: a point defense fighter optimized for close-in air combat. Across the Atlantic, the P-51 Mustang had a radically different origin, born not of an imminent threat, but a logistical challenge in a foreign order. Britain, desperate for fighters in 1940, approached North American Aviation NA to produce the Curtiss P-40 under license. Instead, NA's visionary president James Dutch Kindleberger proposed an entirely new design, promising superior performance in record time, about 120 days. The NA-73X prototype flew in October 1940. Its initial form, though promising, used the Allison V1710 engine. This engine, while robust and efficient at low and medium altitudes, suffered a drastic drop in performance above 15,000 feet due to its single-stage supercharger and single gear. The Allison-powered Mustang MK I served the RAF well in reconnaissance and ground attack missions, but not as a high-altitude air superiority fighter. The transformation, the rebirth of Mustang, came when British engineers at Rolls-Royce, knowing the potential of the P-51's airframe, especially its laminar flow wing, an innovation that dramatically reduced drag at high speeds, suggested adapting their own Merlin engine, specifically the two-stage, two-speed supercharged versions. The result, first tested in Britain and then mass-produced in the U.S. as the Packard V1650, a license-built version of the Merlin, was spectacular. The P-51 be divided by C, and subsequently, the iconic P-51D with its bubble cockpit was born. Its design, with a ventral radiator cleverly positioned to take advantage of the merited effect, where heated air expelled from the radiator generates a small amount of thrust, and its vast internal fuel capacity, supplemented by external tanks, signaled a distinct strategic philosophy. The Mustang was refined to be a long-range fighter, capable of escorting bombers into the heart of enemy territory and beyond. This was not just a question of form and function, but of doctrine. The Spitfire in its conception was the guardian of the gate. The Mustang, in its maturity with the Merlin, became the key to breaching that gate and dominating what lay within. The Spitfire, especially in its early and mid-range variants, such as the MK-V and MK.9, was the epitome of agility, with top speeds that rose from around 360 miles per hour, 580 kilometers per hour. For the MK to at over 400 miles per hour, 650 kilometers per hour. For the MK.9, and even higher with the later Griffin models. Its speed was competitive. However, its greatest virtue lay in its rate of climb and, above all, its ability to perform tight turns. It was incredibly light on the controls, responding almost telepathically to the pilot's intentions. At low and medium altitudes, where most of the fighting in the Battle of Britain and subsequent campaigns took place, the Spitfire was a formidable adversary, able to outmaneuver most of its German contemporaries. Its aluminum airframe, although requiring careful maintenance, withstood the stresses of dogfighting well. However, its operational range was limited, an intrinsic characteristic of its role as an interceptor. Even with drop tanks, it could not keep up with the bombers deep into Germany. The P-51 Mustang, especially after the adoption of the Packard V1650 Merlin engine, became a superb performer in a different flight envelope. Its top speed in the P-51D variant could reach an impressive 703 kilometers per hour at optimum altitude, but the truly revolutionary factor was its range. With internal and external fuel tanks, the Mustang could fly missions of over 2,500 kilometers, remaining over the target for considerable time. This meant that it could escort the B-17 and B-24 bombers of the American 8th Air Force from England to Berlin, Munich, and other distant targets, and still have fuel to fight. Its laminar flow wing and clean aerodynamic design contributed to this efficiency in cruise and high speed. At high altitudes where bombers operated, the Merlin-powered Mustang consistently outperformed its opponents, including later versions of the Bf-109 and FW-190. Its stability as a firing platform was excellent, and the introduction of the bubble cockpit on the P-51D gave it unrivaled all-round visibility, a critical factor in detecting and engaging the enemy, although perhaps not as agile as a Spitfire in pure low-altitude turning combat. Its energy retention, diving speed, and overall performance at altitude made it a lethal predator. The machines, therefore, reflected their missions. The Spitfire was the master of furball, the chaotic, close-in air combat. The Mustang was the fast marathon runner, the long-range detector, and the vast-range hunter. Power, engineering, and flying characteristics are vital, but the ultimate measure of a fighter aircraft lies in its impact on the battlefield. The result achieved and the strategies enabled. The Spitfire etched its name in history in gold during the Battle of Britain in the summer and autumn of 1940. Alongside the more numerous Hawker Hurricane, the Spitfire, with its superior performance against the Luftwaffe's Messerschmitt Bf-109ES, became the symbol of British resistance. Its presence was psychologically and tactically crucial in preventing the Luftwaffe from achieving air superiority over the United Kingdom, a prerequisite for the planned German invasion, Operation Sea Lion. The Spitfire pilots, the few, faced overwhelming odds and prevailed. Throughout the war, the Spitfire continued to be updated and served with distinction in every theater, from North Africa to the Mediterranean, from the Eastern Front, with the Soviet Union, to the Pacific. It was a defensive front line, the shield of the island, the interceptor that answered the call time and again. Its continuous evolution, culminating in the powerful Griffin power models, kept it relevant through the end of the war and beyond. The P-51 Mustang, in its final Merlin-powered form, rewrote the rules of strategic air warfare over Europe. Before its arrival in significant numbers in late 1943 and early 1944, American heavy bombers had suffered prohibitive losses on their daylight raids over Germany. Earlier escort fighters, such as the P-38 Lightning and P-47 Thunderbolt, while capable, lacked the Mustang's range or combination of altitude performance to protect bomber formations all the way to deep targets. The Mustang changed that. Suddenly, bombers had little friends, as they were affectionately called, that could not only accompany them but actively hunt down Luftwaffe interceptors. The impact was devastating for the German fighter force. Experienced Luftwaffe pilots were systematically decimated. Hermann Göring, commander of the Luftwaffe, is said to have bitterly said that he knew the war was lost when he saw Mustangs over Berlin. The P-51 not only protected the bombers, but broke the back of the Luftwaffe, allowing the strategic bombing campaign to reach its full destructive potential, paving the way for the invasion of Normandy and the final defeat of the Third Reich. While the Spitfire was a shining star in the crucial early chapters of the defense, ensuring survival, the Mustang was a relentless protagonist in the climax of the air war, securing offensive victory. Today, both the Spitfire and the Mustang are revered, occupying pride of place in museums, participating in thrilling aerial displays, and starring in countless documentaries and works of fiction. Their legacies, however, carry distinct nuances. The Spitfire remains an indelible icon of British resilience and indomitable spirit. It is more than an aircraft. It is a monument to ingenuity under pressure, to defiant courage in the face of the seemingly impossible. An aircraft that, through continuous and adaptive development, maintained its relevance and effectiveness from first to the last day of the war in Europe, and continued to serve in various air forces in the post-war period. Its design influenced aeronautical thinking, and its elliptical silhouette is synonymous with beauty and power in aviation. The P-51 Mustang, on the other hand, represents a rise of American air supremacy and the projection of industrial and technological power. It embodied the turning of the tide, the shift from a defensive posture to an overwhelming offensive by the Allies. It was the instrument that enabled the execution of the daytime strategic bombing doctrine, a freedom vector that reached the deepest recesses of enemy territory, where no other Allied fighter could operate as effectively or for as long. The Mustang also had a long post-war career, serving prominently in the Korean War and with dozens of other air forces, solidifying its status as one of the most important and successful piston fighters of all time. So who, then, reigned supreme in the skies over Europe? The answer, as is often the case in complex history, is not a simple name, but an appreciation of context and mission. The Spitfire was undoubtedly the vital shield, the supreme defender in the darkest of times. Without its exemplary performance in the Battle of Britain, the course of the war might have been drastically different. It was the right fighter in the right place at the most critical moment for Britain's survival and, by extension, for the early Allied war effort. The Mustang, especially the Merlin-powered P-51D, was a long-range spear. It was the aircraft that took the fight to the enemy, that dismantled the Luftwaffe on its own soil, and that made possible a strategic air offensive that strangled the German war machine. One shone brightly in the defense of the British Isles, ensuring that the war could continue. The other dominated the continental offensive, ensuring that the war was won. However, if the question is which aircraft had the most decisive impact on the achievement and maintenance of total air superiority over Europe, allowing all other Allied ground and air operations to proceed with an unprecedented degree of freedom in the final stages of the war, the answer leans towards a P-51 Mustang. Its ability to operate over great distances at high altitudes with superior performance and in overwhelming numbers was what effectively swept the Luftwaffe from the skies, from the English Channel to the heart of Germany. Both were magnificent instruments of war, flown by men of extraordinary courage. The Spitfire saved Britain. The Mustang helped liberate a continent. And the skies of Europe witnessed the reign of both at different stages for different purposes, but with a combined legacy of excellence and bravery that will never be forgotten.